explaining complex things.
How do mirrors work?
Mirrors are basically reality photocopiers for light. You stand in front of one, and an instant clone is staring back at you. But how? Light bounces. That's it. When photons, tiny packets of light, hit something, they usually scatter in a million directions, like when you drop Skittles on the floor. Your shirt, your wall, your dog, all scatter light in a messy way so you just see colors. But a mirror? It's smooth, like really smooth, way smoother than your skin or your phone screen. So when light hits it, the photons bounce off at the exact same angle they came in. That's called specular reflection. Basically, light in, light out. Same order, just reversed. But why does it flip what you see, left and right, but not up and down? The truth is, it doesn't. Mirrors don't actually flip anything. Your brain just thinks they do. Here's what's really happening. When you raise your right hand, the mirror shows your right hand. It's still on the right side of your body. Nothing's moved. The only difference is now it's facing you. So your brain goes, wait, that looks backwards. The shiny surface? It's usually just a thin layer of aluminum or silver glued to glass. That's what causes the reflection. Without it, a mirror would just be a transparent piece of glass.
Why do onions make you cry?
Onions look innocent. They're just little vegetable bulbs sitting quietly in your kitchen. Then you cut one open and your eyes start stinging. Why? Inside every onion are tiny cells full of different chemicals, all living in peace until you slice it. Your knife is basically smashing those cells apart. When that happens, two chemicals meet for the first time. One is an enzyme, the other is a sulfur compound. Mix them together and they create a brand new chemical with a scary name, syn-propanethyl S-oxide. That chemical turns into a gas, and when it floats up into your face, your eyes freak out. They think they're being attacked, so they send a signal to your tear glands. Flush it out. Your body basically hoses your eyeballs down like they're on fire. Onions didn't evolve this to ruin your cooking experience. It's actually a defense mechanism to stop animals from eating them. Turns out, it doesn't work. We still eat them. We just cry too. If you want to cry less, chill the onion before cutting. The cold slows the chemical reaction. Or cut it under running water so the gas can't reach your eyes. Or you could wear a full pair of scuba goggles.
Why do we get hiccups?
Hiccups are basically your diaphragm throwing a tantrum. Your diaphragm is a big muscle under your lungs that helps you breathe. It moves down when you inhale, up when you exhale. Normally it's fine, but sometimes it just spasms. When that happens, your lungs suddenly suck in air way too fast. Your vocal cords slam shut, and that makes the classic hic sound. Why does it spasm in the first place? It could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe you ate too fast, or drank something fizzy, or laughed so hard your breathing went off script. Sometimes it's because your stomach is full and pressing on the diaphragm. Scientists aren't 100% sure why humans hiccup, but one theory is that it's a leftover reflex from way back when we were tiny tadpole-like creatures learning to breathe. Basically, your body's still carrying an ancient glitch. Most hiccups go away on their own, but that doesn't stop people from inventing wild cures. You've probably heard of the main few. Holding your breath, drinking water upside down, being scared half to death. Do they work? They can, but maybe you just stopped hiccuping by chance and gave your friend all the credit. How do cats always land on their feet? If you drop a cat, gently of course, unless something's gone very wrong, it's going to twist in midair and stick the landing like an Olympic gymnast. This isn't luck. It's called the righting reflex, and it's one of the coolest bits of animal engineering nature ever came up with. The righting reflex kicks in the instant a cat's brain realizes it's falling. Inside their inner ear is a special balance system, the vestibular apparatus, which works like the world's tiniest gyroscope. It constantly tracks which way is up, even when the cat is spinning. The second the cat senses it's upside down, a chain reaction begins. Step 1. The head turns. The cat locks its eyes on the ground, like a fighter pilot lining up a landing strip. Step 2. The front half of the body twists one way, the back half twists the other. Cats can do this because their spines are insanely flexible. They have more vertebrae than we do, and no stiff collarbone to get in the way. Step 3. Once facing the right way, they spread out all four legs, arch their backs, and puff out slightly. This increases air resistance, slowing the fall, kind of like a tiny parachute, made of fluff. Cats are also surprisingly light for their size, which means they don't slam into the ground with as much force as a heavier animal. In fact, past a certain height, they actually have more time to adjust and slow their descent, which is why some cats have survived absurdly high falls. There's even a term for this, high-rise syndrome. Vets use it to describe cats that have fallen from apartment buildings and walked away with minimal injuries. The righting reflex starts developing in kittens at just a few weeks old, and by around 7 weeks, most have mastered it. It's instinct, not training. Your cat can't go to falling school, it's just born with the program installed.
Why does your voice sound different in recordings?
You know that moment when someone plays back a video and you instantly think, who is that? Yeah, bad news. That's just you. Here's the deal. When you speak, you're hearing your voice in 2 completely different ways at the same time. First is the normal way. Sound waves travel out of your mouth, through the air, into your ear canal, vibrate your eardrum, and your brain goes, cool, that's me. Second is the secret way. Those sound vibrations also travel through the bones and tissues inside your head. This bone conduction adds a deep, rich bass layer to your voice, like your skull is running its own private subwoofer. That's the voice you're used to hearing every single day. The problem? A microphone doesn't live in your head. It can't hear that extra bass boost your skull gives you. It only picks up the air version of your voice, the thinner, higher-pitched, slightly more nasal version that other people hear all the time. When you play that back, your brain is confused. It's like listening to a song you've only ever heard through good headphones, but now it's blasting from a bad phone speaker. This is why your recorded voice feels so weird. It's not that the recording is wrong, it's that your brain's been lying to you your whole life. Your everyday voice has been sweetened by bone conduction, and without it, you feel exposed. The good news? Everyone else already knows this recording voice and they're fine with it. They're not hearing anything strange. You're just meeting the real public version of yourself for the first time.
How does Bluetooth work?
Bluetooth is basically short-range, invisible magic, except it's actually just radio waves. It's the reason your headphones can talk to your phone and your phone can talk to your car. Here's what's happening. Bluetooth sends data using very low-power radio waves. Instead of blasting across the city like FM radio, it stays in a tiny bubble, usually about 30 feet, so it doesn't drain your battery or annoy your neighbor's speaker. Both devices, say your phone and your earbuds, have tiny Bluetooth chips inside. These chips agree on a frequency, start sending signals back and forth, and there you go. They're paired. But here's the cool part. Bluetooth doesn't hog one channel. It uses frequency hopping, switching between 79 different channels hundreds of times per second. That means even if your Wi-Fi or someone else's Bluetooth is nearby, it can dodge the interference. Data, whether it's music, a phone call, or that photo you shouldn't have airdropped, gets chopped into tiny packets. Each packet jumps across these frequencies in a secret pattern only the 2 devices know. That's why some random person can't just tune in and listen to your playlist. The range and speed depend on the version of Bluetooth you're using. Newer ones go farther, faster, and use less power. But the core idea has been the same since the 90s. Tiny bursts of radio waves, hopping between channels, making 2 gadgets act like they've been best friends forever.
Why does your brain ignore the second the?
Read that again. You probably missed the second the, and that's the whole point. Here's what's going on. Your brain is lazy. It loves predicting what's coming next so it can save time and energy. When you read, your brain isn't looking at every single letter. It's scanning for patterns and filling in the blanks. It's like autocomplete for thoughts. So when you see a super common phrase, like the cat or in the, your brain is already halfway through the sentence before your eyes have even finished it. If there are 2 thes in a row, your brain's like, yeah, I got it, and just deletes one. It's not a glitch in your eyes. They see both words. It's a glitch in your attention. This is why you can proofread something 10 times and still miss obvious mistakes. Your brain is too busy being helpful and predicting the next thing to notice what's actually there. Want to catch the second the? Read slower. Or read backwards, word by word. It breaks your brain's prediction habit. Otherwise, you'll just keep skipping over the second the, without even realizing it.
How does caffeine work?
Caffeine is the world's most socially acceptable drug. It's in your coffee, your tea, your soda, your energy drinks, and even in chocolate. We all act like it's just a little pick-me-up. So, what's it actually doing to you? Your body runs on a chemical called adenosine. Throughout the day, adenosine builds up in your brain and makes you feel tired. It's like sand piling up in an hourglass. When enough of it collects, your brain says, all right, time for bed. Caffeine's master trick? It looks just like adenosine to your brain. So when you drink coffee, caffeine molecules rush in and start plugging themselves into the adenosine receptors, the little docking stations that normally make you feel sleepy. But caffeine doesn't activate them. It just blocks them. Your brain's basically trying to hit the tired button, and caffeine sitting on it saying, nope, not today. With the sleep signals blocked, your brain's other chemicals go wild. Dopamine and adrenaline get a boost, your heart rate speeds up, and you feel more alert, focused, maybe even a little superhuman. The catch? Caffeine doesn't give you energy, it just hides your tiredness. When it wears off, all that adenosine comes flooding back at once, which is why people experience a crash. Your body also gets used to caffeine over time, so you need more for the same effect, which is how people build up crazy caffeine addictions.
Why do you yawn?
Yawning is something everyone does, but scientists still don't completely agree on why.
For decades, the most common explanation was oxygen, the idea that yawning helps bring more air into your lungs when you need it. It made sense at first. Take in a big breath, get a boost of oxygen, problem solved. But research has shown that yawning still happens even when your oxygen levels are perfectly fine, so the old theory doesn't quite hold up. A newer idea focuses on brain temperature. Your brain works best within a very specific range, and when it gets too warm, it can slow down. Yawning might help cool it down. When you yawn, you take in a deep breath of cooler air, stretch the muscles in your face, and increase blood flow in your head, all of which can help bring the temperature down slightly. This might be why yawning is more common in warm environments, or when you're tired and your brain has been active for a long time. There's also the contagious side of yawning. Seeing, hearing, or even reading about a yawn can make you do it too. This could be linked to empathy and social bonding, a way for groups of animals, including humans, to sync up their states of alertness and rest. So while the exact reason isn't fully proven, the most likely explanation is that yawning is your brain's way of regulating itself, a built-in cooling and reset mechanism that just happens to spread from person to person. Comment if this section has made you a yawn, and I want you to think about yawning right now. Haha, good luck.
How does Face ID know it's you? Face ID works a lot like your brain does when it sees a friend across the room, except it uses lasers, math, and way more precision. When you look at your phone, tiny sensors near the front camera project more than 30,000 invisible infrared dots onto your face. These dots create a 3D depth map, capturing every contour, the curve of your cheeks, the shape of your jaw, the height of your nose. It's not just a photo, it's a full mathematical model of your face. The infrared camera then takes a picture of those dots and the rest of your face in infrared light. This data is turned into a series of numbers, a unique face signature, and compared against the encrypted version stored inside your phone from when you first set up Face ID. If the two match closely enough, your phone unlocks. It's designed to work in different lighting, with hats, glasses, or even facial hair changes. That's because Face ID doesn't just rely on surface details, it measures the depth and relative positions of your features, which are harder to change. So when you glance at your phone and it just opens, it's not guessing. It's reading a complex 3D map of you in under a second, deciding with near-perfect accuracy whether it's really you, and allowing you to unlock your phone.
Basic financial concepts explained simply.
Taxes. Picture this. Imagine you just had a hard month at work, slaving away flipping burgers at your local McDonald's. You're in bed when you get an email from them. It says you've been paid $2,000. But your bank account only gets $1,456. You scroll down the stub. Federal income tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare. This is the modern ritual of giving away a chunk of your money to invisible forces, and they expect you to say thank you. Here's the deal. Taxes are the cost of civilization. You pay, the government builds roads, funds schools, makes sure your favorite taco truck isn't infested with rats, and sends billion-dollar missiles to places you've never been. But there are different types of taxes. Income tax, which hits the money you make. Sales tax, which hits the money you spend. Capital gains tax, which hits the money your investments made while you were asleep. The government takes a little bit of every dollar. Nearly everyone also pays Social Security tax and Medicare tax. Basically, Social Security tax is like the government forcing you to save for your retirement. They force you to save money now, and you get it paid back to you over time when you retire. Medicare, however, is a health insurance tax that goes to supporting older people or people with serious health issues. Now comes filing your taxes. Oh boy, the government knows how much you owe, but it makes you guess. How cool. If you're right, no worries. But if you're wrong, you're cooked. When it comes to actually paying taxes, some people pay every few months. Some people pay yearly. And then there's those people that don't pay at all and end up in documentaries. I get that taxes are annoying, but it's not all bad. Countries with higher tax rates generally have a higher quality of life all round. Banks. So, you walk into a bank, hand the cashier your money, they count it, smile, and tell you it will be added to your account. You walk out and think, great, now it's sitting in a vault somewhere, being guarded by a dragon. But in reality, that money's already gone. Most people think of banks like a big safe with only one job: guarding people's money. But in reality, they are just a middleman or a matchmaker for financial transactions. When you deposited that $1,000, the bank took $900 of it and gave it to someone who wants to buy a jet ski. That system is called fractional reserve banking, which basically relies on the idea that they only actually need to keep a fraction of the money on hand because not everyone is going to show up at the same time asking to withdraw 100% of their account. That is, unless it's 2008, of course, when people lined up to withdraw the entirety of their account, which caused the entire system to crumble. Banks make money by lending your money at a higher interest rate than they are giving you. That's really it. You're the supply of money, and the person borrowing is the demand. The banks entice you to deposit your money because of a few reasons. It's much easier and more convenient to spend on a card or transfer than carrying around cash all the time. They are literally paying you to hold your money with them in the form of interest. It is much safer to keep your money in a bank than in a shoebox in your room. In the US, most banks are insured up to $250,000 per person, meaning no matter what, the government assures you that your money, up to $250K, is safe.
Interest. Imagine you borrow $1,000. You have to pay back $1,280. Why? Because of interest. Interest is money's way of charging rent to exist in someone else's hands. When you borrow, interest is the price tag for using someone else's cash. When you lend or save, interest is the reward for being patient and boring. There are two main types. Simple interest is like, here's a flat fee, thanks for playing. Compound interest is, every dollar I gave you now has clones, and they also want rent. Let's say you owe 20% interest on a credit card. You miss a payment. Now your interest is earning interest. Soon, your $12 burrito turns into a $50 regret. On the flip side, investing at 7% annual compound interest, that's your money duplicating itself like a cheat code. $100 becomes $200, then $400. Then one day you wake up and you're old, rich, and a little smug about it. This is why interest is the silent engine behind both wealth and debt. In loans, it's the slow burn that turns small mistakes into financial fires. In investments, it's the time bomb that turns small gains into massive wins. So what's the hack? If you're paying interest, kill it fast. If you're earning interest, let it sit, feed it, and give it time. Interest is either your worst enemy or your best unpaid employee. The choice is in who's collecting it.
Inflation. Okay, so you bought a bag of chips. Open it up, and it looks like it's already been half eaten. You check what you paid, 30% higher than last time. Then you realize you've just been hit by inflation. Inflation is what happens when money slowly gets less valuable over time. Not overnight, not with fireworks, just a slow erosion. Your $5 bill, still technically $5, but it buys less instant noodles, less gas, and doesn't actually have as much value as it did before. So what actually causes it? Sometimes people just have too much money. Everyone's got cash, and they all want to spend it on the same stuff. Let's say 2,000 people want this $500 TV, but the business only has 1,000 TVs for sale. So the business goes, oh, everyone wants this TV? That'll be $800 now. Sometimes it's supply chains with hiccups or problems, making the cost of producing a good or service more expensive, meaning the cost of that good or service must rise. Or sometimes, just cause. Expectations can cause inflation. If people think prices are rising, they'll spend more now, driving prices up faster. It's a self-fulfilling economic prophecy. A little inflation is normal, even good. 2% a year? That's fine, predictable. But if it spikes, savings die, wages lag. The government tries to fight inflation when this occurs, by raising interest rates. When the government raises interest rates, people are paying more interest, or it's more expensive to get a loan, meaning they have less money to spend on things like TVs. This causes a reduction in the amount of spending, pretty much cooling off the economy.
Recessions.
A recession is when the economy decreases for at least 2 quarters or 6 months in simple terms. One day you're fine, you've got a job, bills are paid, you might even be planning a trip with the family, but suddenly there's layoffs, the stock market's only going down. In a recession, jobs vanish, companies cut costs, and everyone saves their money for necessities instead of buying things they don't need. Why does a recession happen? It could be a range of things. Could be high interest rates, making borrowing too expensive. Could be a global crisis, war, pandemic, rogue container ship. Could just be the economic cycle doing what it does best. Boom, peak, bust, reset. Think of the economy as a party. In the boom phase, everyone's dancing, drinks are flowing. But eventually, the lights flicker, reality hits, someone checks their bank account, and suddenly, the DJ's playing sad lo-fi beats about corporate downsizing. Recessions aren't forever, they're resets, painful ones. Governments might lower interest rates, send out stimulus, or just hope people start buying overpriced coffee again. Eventually, spending returns, businesses rebuild, growth resumes, but not without scars.
Credit scores.
A credit score is a shadowy algorithm that knows your name, your past, and how many times you paid your credit card late in college. A three-digit number that decides whether you get a house, a car, or a soul-crushing 27% interest rate on your new TV. This number isn't about wealth. It's about trust. Lenders want to know, if I give this person money, will they actually pay me back? The score has a range from 300 to 850. Below 580, you're a walking red flag. Over 750, you're sparkling with adult credibility. Most people? Stuck somewhere between 640 and 790. How is a credit score calculated? Payment history. Do you pay on time? This is the big one. Credit utilization. How much credit are you using versus how much you could? Credit age. How long you've had accounts. Credit mix. Cards, loans, mortgages. Variety helps. New credit. Too many recent applications? All of these things are the ways it is calculated. But to actually increase your score, you have to make the required payments on each of your loans before you enter the late period. If you enter the late period, your score decreases. Your credit score is like a pet dog. Ignore it, and it poops all over your life. Take care of it, and someday it might help you buy a house. It's not about being good with money. It's about looking good to lenders. You can have zero debt and still have a trash score if you don't have a credit history. So yes, the game is rigged. But if you learn the rules, you can rig it back.
Currency, or money.
The weird part about currency and or money is that it's actually not real. Humans have developed money in order to make the world better. Money makes trading easier, makes it easier to build systems and to organize society. In saying that, there is no more legitimacy between a dollar bill and a Bitcoin. People believe a dollar bill has more legitimacy, and maybe it does, for now, but only because people believe it does. The same can be said for a dollar bill and a stick. The only reason a dollar bill can buy something, and a stick cannot, is the fact that we as a society have agreed that a dollar bill is worth something, while a stick is not. So how does money actually work? Well, the government prints it, the central banks regulate it, and everyday people trade it in exchange for goods and or services. The reason the banks have to regulate it is because if the government prints too much, then inflation kicks in, and everyone's money becomes monopoly money. If the banks make it so there is too little money, no one can afford to live. Currency, or money, is a social construct built on a shared belief and trust.
Investing.
So you know what inflation is now, and the best way to combat inflation, so your money doesn't become less valuable, is investing. Investing is what happens when your money stops sitting around and starts working for you. Instead of trading your time for money, you're trading money for more money. The problem is there is risk involved. What can you actually buy? Stocks. Tiny ownership slices of companies. If the company grows, your slice becomes more valuable. Bonds. Basically, you loan money to a government or company, and they pay you back with interest. Funds. Collections of stocks and bonds so you don't have to play financial games one by one. Real estate. Property you hope someone else pays to live in. Forever. Of course, there are other things, but they are considered the main ones. Investing isn't about being lucky. It's about being early, diversified, and patient. Most wealthy people didn't win the lottery. They just gave compound growth 30 years to do its thing. And yes, investing comes with risk. Markets go up, markets go down. But the real danger isn't losing money. It's never investing and watching inflation quietly steal your future.
Value.
This one is more complex, but everyone should understand it. Imagine you pick up a rock. It's just a rock. Now imagine that rock is shiny and yellow. That's gold. It's rarer than an average rock, so there's a higher value placed on it. Gold is not actually worth more than the average rock. It's just worth more to humans because we place a higher value on it. Understanding this is what allows people to become rich. If you provide a lot of value, you will earn a lot of money. Steve Jobs created the iPhone you're most likely watching this on right now. He created something with a large amount of value, so millions of people gave him thousands of dollars for that bit of value. It's the same reason that doctors and lawyers earn so much money. The value they provide is large, and people are willing to pay a large amount of money for their service. Value is the same reason Gucci or Louis Vuitton can sell the same handbag as Target, but charge 100 times the price. People perceive it as more valuable, so it is. If you can figure out how to create value, even if it's not real value, you can make a lot of money.
Time. Time is the most valuable asset in the world. And the best part, almost everyone starts with a lot of it. You probably have a lot of it left. But no one gets an unlimited supply. Most people work jobs where time is traded directly for money. 1 hour, 1 paycheck. Simple math. The top earners have figured out how to make their time worth millions. And the difference isn't magic, it's skills, leverage, and how well you've trained your hours to work for you. But nowhere does time work harder than in investing. There is no greater force in wealth building. Not luck, not income, time. Because wealth isn't built in days, it's built in decades. Money that sits quietly in an investment doesn't just grow, it multiplies. Slowly at first, then faster. That's why ordinary people with modest paychecks can retire with 7 figures. They didn't beat the system, they used the system. A little money, invested consistently, given enough time, becomes a lot of money.
Every way to get rich.
Scammer. You wake up one morning and decide you're too smart to work a normal job. Why would you waste 40 years in an office when you could just convince some guy in Ohio that you're a Nigerian prince who needs help moving $15 million? You start small. Fake concert tickets, a couple of dodgy eBay listings, maybe an investment opportunity that's really just your bank account. Then you branch out. A pyramid scheme, a fake charity, maybe even a whole Shopify store selling products that don't exist. Before you know it, you've mastered the art of taking money from strangers without ever meeting them. Then one day you hit it big. You set up a fake luxury watch business, slap some stock photos on Instagram, and start selling $10,000 Rolexes for $7,500. The orders flood in, your bank balance explodes, and you can't believe people are still falling for it. Everyone hates scammers, but they also kind of admire the hustle. Right up until the FBI knocks on your door at 4 a.m. and suddenly you're explaining to your cellmate how you once sold thin air for 6 figures.
The inventor.
You're sitting in your garage at 2 a.m. surrounded by half-broken appliances, empty Red Bull cans, and all you can smell is burning plastic. Most people would look at a pile of junk and see, well, a pile of junk. But you see the next big thing. You've already failed with the self-toasting bread knife and the solar-powered flashlight, but this time feels different. You cobble together a weird-looking prototype using duct tape, spare wires, and an old blender motor, and somehow it works. You slap a ridiculous name on it, post a video online, and overnight it goes viral. Suddenly, big companies are calling you with offers in the millions to buy your idea, and you have no idea how to even respond. 1 month later, you're rich, famous, and giving TED Talks about innovation, conveniently leaving out the part where your billion-dollar idea was born because you accidentally glued the wrong parts together. Pro gamer. Your parents told you playing video games all day would never make you money. Now you're sitting in a $4,000 gaming chair with a PC that is worth more than a car. You are racking up sponsorship deals for pressing buttons really fast. When you first started, you were playing with your mates in your bedroom, streaming to an audience of 3 people. You, your mate, and Nightbot. But then you got good, really good. You carried your friend to third on an online tournament, then another, and suddenly you've actually got a decent teammate. You guys get flown out to an arena where thousands of screaming fans are watching you frag strangers on a giant screen. You're earning more from prize money, merch, and brand deals than your parents did in their best year combined. And the best part? All those hours they called wasting time were actually career development. Now you never have to touch grass and can game all day without anyone telling you it's a bad idea. Lawsuit lottery winner. When people ask what you do, you tell them you're a lawyer at a local firm because it sounds respectable. But the truth is you've never studied law a day in your life. Your career started the afternoon you fell down the stairs at McDonald's. You hired a personal injury attorney, claimed the stairs were unsafe, and spent months in court listening to real lawyers argue over the angle of a handrail. You sat there in a suit, nodding like you understood the legal jargon, while secretly wondering if you'd win enough to pay off your car. Then one day the verdict came in. McDonald's had to cut you a settlement so big you've been coasting ever since. Now you introduce yourself as working in law, even though the closest you've ever been to practicing it was signing the NDA at the end of the trial.
Freelancer.
You like to tell people you're self-employed, which is just another way of saying you've beaten the system. No boss, no commute, no pointless Monday meetings. Just you, your laptop, and the freedom to work from anywhere. You started with small gigs, a bit of writing here, a logo design there, but it didn't take long before you were charging real money for work you could do in sweatpants. Now you wake up when you feel like it, take lunch breaks that last 3 hours, and work from beaches, coffee shops, or your bed if you feel like it. You set your own rates, pick your own clients, and never have to ask permission to take a day off. Sure, sometimes you're still working at 2 a.m., but that's only because you decided to spend the whole afternoon doing absolutely nothing, and you love it. Politician. You realize one day that making money doesn't always mean earning it. Sometimes it just means getting elected. You started small, shaking hands, kissing babies, and promising things you have no intention of delivering. You run for a local seat, win by a landslide, and suddenly you're collecting a government paycheck for sitting in meetings and nodding at things you don't understand. The salary looks decent, but the real money, that comes later.
campaign donations that just happen to stick around, inflated consulting fees from friends of friends, and those property deals that conveniently go through companies owned by your family. Every speech you give is carefully polished to sound inspiring, but vague enough that it could mean anything. You learn to speak for 20 minutes without actually saying a single concrete thing, and somehow that skill alone keeps you in office for decades. By the time you retire, you've gone from broke idealist to millionaire public servant. Half the people still think you did it for them, while the other half can't prove otherwise. You spend the rest of your days sitting by the pool in your mansion.
Drug dealer. You figure out early on that supply and demand works a lot faster when your product is addictive. When you first start, all you do is a few sales here and there to friends. You move on to the club bathrooms where you pretty much force unwilling people to buy from you. But then the word spreads. Your friend's friend needs some ASAP. Suddenly you're making more in a weekend than most people make in a month, and all you had to do was answer a few late-night calls and meet people in parking lots. You upgrade your car, your clothes, and your phone, and everyone assumes you just have a good job. The truth is, your office is the backseat of your car, and your business hours are whenever someone's desperate enough to pay double. It's risky, sure. One wrong move and you're in handcuffs, but the money's so fast it feels like the rules don't apply to you. You tell yourself it's just temporary, a quick way to stack some cash, but deep down you know that once you've had a taste of this kind of money, a normal paycheck will never feel the same.
Investor. When you were younger, you realized that the real money isn't in working harder. It's in making your money work for you. You start with a little savings, maybe a few shares in a company your dad told you was good, and suddenly you're hooked. The charts become your friend, every dip looks like an opportunity, but you're very scared to buy, and every gain makes you feel like a genius. You diversify between stocks, real estate, maybe even a few risky plays in startups your friends have never heard of. Some bets crash, others explode, but the wins easily outweigh the losses. Your goal is earning more from passive income than you ever did at your old job, and your workday now consists of checking numbers on your phone between rounds of golf. People think you're lucky, but you know it's part skill, part patience, and part ignoring the urge to panic sell. Even though you have made it, you still get the urge to panic sell the dips and buy more at all-time highs. But at least you've made it now.
Online degenerate.
You've somehow turned wasting time on the internet into a full-time income. It started with harmless late-night scrolling, when you kept seeing this character you'd never seen before. Big eyes, lopsided smile, bright green skin. The captions just say Zoggle. You ignore it at first, but then you see it again, and again, and again. Every video is Zoggle dancing, Zoggle driving a Lambo, Zoggle holding stacks of cash. It's hilarious and everywhere. You finally cave, click the link in someone's bio, and realize it's a meme coin. You decide to throw in $200 because that money was just going into Sportsbet anyways. After a week of constant doom scrolling and watching Netflix, you see a TikTok post about Zoggle the coin and realize that you actually own some. You open up your wallet, and your Zoggle is still worth $200, but when you refresh, you can't believe your eyes. Your $200 is now worth 7 figures. You have no idea how or why it happened, but somehow you've gone from a random guy on TikTok to an accidental millionaire, all because a smiling green blob wouldn't leave your feed. You decide to cash out half and leave half in, just because you love Zoggle himself. But you needed money for Uber Eats, Sportsbet, and Chrome Hearts. Course seller. You figure out pretty quickly that it's easier to make money teaching people how to make money than actually making it yourself. So you build a proven system based on a few buzzwords you stole from other people's content, slap it into a PDF, and start calling yourself a mentor. You film some videos in front of a rented Lamborghini, throw in shots of a laptop by a pool, and tell people they can escape the 9-to-5 if they just follow your steps. The course sells for $499, but you offer a limited time discount every single day of the year. Before long, strangers are wiring you thousands for information they could have Googled for free, and you're making more from selling the dream than you ever did chasing it. Deep down, you know most of your students will fail, but that's fine. Every failure just makes them more likely to buy your next course. Incorrect facts. Everyone still believes. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You've heard it your whole life. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Sounds like a golden rule of health, right? Nope. That line didn't come from some groundbreaking medical discovery. It came from marketing. Back in the late 1800s, a guy named John Harvey Kellogg, aka the Cornflakes guy, started pushing breakfast hard. Then in the 1900s, food companies ran with it because they were selling cereal by calling it essential. It worked so well that now people think skipping breakfast is practically a crime. But here's the truth. Science doesn't back this up.
Eating breakfast isn't a magical key to weight loss, better focus, or a longer life. Studies show what really matters is your overall diet and lifestyle, not whether you ate eggs at 8 a.m. Some people genuinely feel great eating first thing in the morning. Others feel sluggish and prefer to wait. Intermittent fasting is literally the act of entirely skipping breakfast, and lots of people around the world thrive on that. Your body runs on energy from the food you've eaten over time, not the clock. If you're hungry in the morning, eat. If not, then just skip it.
Camels store water in their humps.
Everyone pictures camels as walking canteens, storing gallons of water in those big humps on their backs. Sounds logical, right? A desert animal, a giant hump, must be a water tank. But here's the reality. Those humps are made of fat, not water. Camels store up to 80 pounds of fat in there, and that's their energy reserve. It's like their portable snack bar. When food is scarce, they burn that fat to survive. So if the hump is fat and not water, where does the water thing come from? Camels are just insanely good at managing hydration. They can drink an unbelievable amount when they find water, up to 40 gallons in one go, and then go for weeks without another sip. Their bodies are masters of conservation. Their red blood cells are oval-shaped, so blood keeps flowing even when water is low, and they can let their body temperature fluctuate so they don't sweat as much. They're built for desert survival. But water in the hump? That's pure Hollywood fantasy.
Humans only have 5 senses. You've probably heard this since kindergarten. Humans have 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Sounds normal, right? But it's way off. The idea of 5 senses goes all the way back to Aristotle, and we've just been repeating it ever since. In reality, scientists have identified at least 9 senses, and some say over 20. On top of the big 5, you've got balance, called the vestibular sense, which keeps you from falling over every time you stand up. Then there's proprioception, your body's awareness of where your limbs are without looking. Ever touch your nose with your eyes closed? That's proprioception. You also have thermoception, sensing heat and cold, nociception for pain, and even interoception, which tells you things like when you're hungry or need to breathe. If we only had 5 senses, walking in a straight line or even staying alive would be a nightmare. So next time someone says humans have 5 senses, tell them they forgot at least 4 more, and that's being generous. You should pee on jellyfish stings. Maybe you've done it, or maybe you've seen it in movies. Someone gets stung by a jellyfish and their friend steps up with the ultimate survival move: pee on the sting. Hollywood makes it look like a cure, but in reality, it can make things worse. Here's why. Jellyfish stings come from tiny venom-filled cells called nematocysts. When they fire, they inject venom into your skin, and some of these stingers can stick around, loaded and ready to go. The last thing you want is to trigger them again. And guess what urine can do? Depending on its salt concentration and temperature, it can actually cause those cells to release more venom. So congratulations, you've just been peed on and it now hurts more. The real fix? Rinse with seawater, not fresh water, because that also makes the stingers fire. And then soak the area in hot water. Heat helps break down the toxins and calm the pain. Or if you've got it, vinegar works for certain species. So next time you're at the beach and someone gets stung, skip the hero pee moment. Or once you've stepped up and done it, you can tell them it was actually pointless. Chameleons don't try to camouflage. Everyone thinks chameleons can just go invisible when they feel like it, blending into any background like some reptile magician. Green jungle? They turn green. Sandy desert? They go tan. Sounds cool, but it's mostly a myth. Chameleons don't change color to vanish into the scenery. They do it to communicate and regulate temperature. Those dramatic color shifts are basically just visual moods. Feeling aggressive? Bright colors. Relaxed? Duller shades. Hot and need to cool down? They lighten up to reflect heat. Cold? They go darker to soak up warmth. How do they pull it off? Their skin is packed with special cells called chromatophores and nanocrystals that reflect light differently depending on how they expand or contract. This creates everything from subtle shade shifts to full-on rainbow displays. But blending in like a perfect camouflage ninja? That's Hollywood magic. Sure, they might match some natural colors by coincidence, but they're not out here repainting themselves in order to blend in and become invisible. Carrots give you night vision. You've heard this one forever. Eat your carrots and you'll be able to see in the dark. Sounds awesome, right? Sadly, it's pure myth with a little history twist. Carrots do have beta-carotene, which your body turns into vitamin A, and vitamin A is crucial for healthy eyes. But does it give you night vision powers? Not even close. If you're severely deficient in vitamin A, carrots will help restore normal vision, but they won't turn you into a nocturnal predator. So where did this myth come from? Blame World War II propaganda. The British Royal Air Force had radar tech that let them spot enemy planes at night, but they didn't want Germany to know. So they claimed their pilots had super night vision because they ate tons of carrots. The story spread like wildfire, and people still believe it today.
Carrots are great for you, but if you're hoping to ditch your headlights after a few carrots, forget it. The only thing carrots give you at night is orange teeth.
Blood is blue inside your veins.
You probably heard someone say, your blood is blue until it hits the air. Makes sense if you've ever looked at your veins. They look blue, right? But here's the truth. Human blood is never blue. Not in your veins, not in your heart, not anywhere. It's always red, just different shades depending on oxygen levels. Bright red when it's loaded with oxygen, darker red when it's carrying less. So why do your veins look blue? That's an optical illusion caused by how light penetrates your skin and bounces back. Blue light has a shorter wavelength, so it scatters more easily than red light, making veins appear bluish under the skin. The blue blood idea got so popular that some people even think your blood turns red only when it touches oxygen. Nope, cut yourself and you don't see a color change, because it was already red. This rumor may also be due to some animals like horseshoe crabs that actually do have blue blood. But humans? We're stuck with red. Blue blood royalty? That's just a metaphor.
Never wake a sleepwalker.
If you've ever seen someone sleepwalk, you've probably heard, "Don't wake them, it's dangerous." The story goes that if you wake them, they'll have a heart attack, go into shock, or lose their mind forever. Sounds terrifying, but it's pure myth. Waking up a sleepwalker won't kill them. It might confuse or startle them, but that's about it. Sleepwalking happens during deep sleep, so when you wake them, their brain is basically rebooting. They'll probably be groggy and have no idea what's going on, but they'll survive just fine. So where did this idea come from? Mostly old superstitions and fear of messing with sleep, because sleep has always seemed mysterious and sacred. The real danger isn't waking them, it's letting them roam. Sleepwalkers can do some pretty risky things. Wander outside, climb stairs, even drive cars in rare cases. That's where people get hurt. So, the best move? Gently guide them back to bed if you can. If that's not possible, just wake them. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. You've probably heard this one as a metaphor for rare events. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. Sounds dramatic, like nature's got a rule book. But here's the truth. Lightning doesn't care about sayings. It absolutely strikes the same place over and over. In fact, tall structures like skyscrapers, radio towers, and even trees are magnets for lightning. The Empire State Building gets hit about 20 to 25 times every single year. Why? Because lightning takes the path of least resistance, and a big metal tower sticking into the sky is basically an invitation. So the next time someone drops that phrase, remember, lightning's not picky. If you're standing in the wrong spot during a storm, it might strike you twice just to prove a point. Sharks can smell a drop of blood from miles away. You've seen this scene in every shark movie. One tiny drop of blood hits the water, and miles away, a great white goes into a frenzy, zeroing in like it has some sort of GPS. Sounds terrifying, right? But in reality, that's Hollywood drama, not science. Sharks do have an amazing sense of smell, one of the best in the animal kingdom, but the whole miles away idea is massively overblown. In truth, they can detect blood at concentrations of about 1 part per million. That's insanely good, but it translates to something like a drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, not the entire ocean. And even then, currents, tides, and water movement scatter scent quickly. So no, if you cut your finger in Hawaii, a shark in California isn't coming for you. They're impressive predators, but they're not horror movie level. Still, probably don't test this by bleeding in the water, because if a shark's nearby, it's definitely going to notice. Humans swallow 8 spiders a year while sleeping. You've probably heard this creepy fact. Every year, while you sleep, 8 spiders crawl into your mouth. Picture that. Mid-dream, and a spider decides to crawl in your open mouth, or down one of your nostrils. It sneaks past your lips, sets up camp, and disappears forever. Terrifying, right? Good news? It's total nonsense. Spiders don't want to go anywhere near your mouth. Think about it. Warm, wet, vibrating, and full of teeth. That's basically their worst nightmare. The vibrations of your breathing, your snoring, even your heartbeat send them running the other way. They hunt where it's quiet and still, not on top of a snoring giant who might squish them at any second. So, where did this nightmare come from? The reason that the average human swallows 8 a year is because one guy is skewing the odds and eating 64 billion to mess with the rest of us. In reality, the odds of swallowing even 1 spider in your life are microscopic, unless you're doing it on purpose. So relax. There's nothing sneaking into your mouth at night unless you're that one guy. Pirates made people walk the plank. Every pirate movie has it. The dramatic moment where the villain waves a sword and snarls, "Walk the plank." The crew gathers, they beat the drums, and the victim does that slow, trembling tiptoe toward the edge. He splashes into the shark-infested waters while everyone cheers. It's iconic,
but almost entirely fake. Historical records show little to no evidence of real pirates using this method. Why? Because pirates weren't putting on Broadway shows, they were running a business. Time was money, and forcing someone to balance on a board was just unnecessary. If they wanted you gone, they'd toss you overboard, stab you, or ransom you. Fast, simple, and terrifying in its own way. Walking the plank didn't really pop up until the 19th century in literature and stage plays, and then Hollywood ran wild with it. So the truth? You weren't taking a theatrical stroll to your death, you were getting shoved. Or shanked, then shoved. Less cinematic, but the outcome was the same.
You lose most body heat through your head.
You've probably heard this one from every parent ever. Wear a hat or you'll freeze. Most of your body heat escapes through your head. Sounds legit, right? It even sounds scientific, like your head is some kind of chimney that blasts heat into the cold winter air. But it's a myth born from bad science. The idea came from a 1950s military experiment where soldiers in freezing conditions wore winter gear, except on their heads. Of course, they lost more heat there. That was the only bare skin exposed. The truth is, heat escapes from any uncovered skin, and it's proportional to the surface area. Your head is only about 10% of your body, so unless you're some kind of giant floating head, it's not where you're losing most of your warmth. If you went outside naked wearing just a hat, you'd still freeze in minutes. Of course, a hat still helps in winter, but so do pants, gloves, socks, and literally anything else covering your skin. If you want to stay warm, dress like a human.
Owls are wise. Owls have been the animal symbol for wisdom forever. Ancient Greece made them Athena's mascot, storybooks give them glasses, and cartoons treat them like professors. They're perched on the shoulders of wizards, dishing out advice in magical forests, and for centuries we've treated them like nature's philosophers. But in reality, owls aren't the geniuses of the bird world. They're more like the strong, silent type. Yes, they're incredible hunters, but that's instinct, not IQ. They're night assassins, not professors. Compare them to crows or ravens, which can solve puzzles, recognize human faces, and even use tools, and owls look kind of clueless. Crows can drop nuts on crosswalks so cars crack them open. Owls? They just sit there looking mysterious. Their huge eyes and fixed stare make them seem deep and thoughtful. But that's just biology, not them being all deep. So next time you see an owl staring into the distance, it's not thinking about life's big questions. It's thinking mouse or frog. Chickens can live without their heads for a few seconds. Everyone knows the phrase, running around like a headless chicken. But most people think the story ends in seconds. You chop off the head, a little flapping, and then done. But the truth is way stranger. Sometimes that headless chicken doesn't just twitch, it keeps on living. Not for seconds, not even for minutes, but for hours. In one famous case from 1945, a chicken named Mike lived for 18 months after losing his head. How is that even possible? Turns out the brainstem, which controls basic life functions like breathing and heartbeat, can stay intact if the cut is high enough. So Mike's body just kept going. Farmers fed him through an eyedropper straight into his throat, and he became a national celebrity, traveling the U.S. as the Headless Wonder Chicken. Think about that for a second. You're looking at a chicken with no face, no eyes, no beak, just a body and a pulse. Was he aware? Could he feel anything? Or was it pure instinct driving him on? Scientists aren't sure, and honestly, I couldn't tell you either. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me video ideas you want to see in the comments.